She can't seriously think this is a courtroom defense, Richard Collins scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain as he clicked his pen and looked over his glasses. Your Honor, with all due respect, are we really entertaining this child fantasy? This is a legal proceeding, not a school debate. Maya stood next to her mother, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched the folder of documents. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind 100 times. But now, with the eyes of strangers burning into her, she felt like she might vanish into the floor. Angela, sitting beside her, whispered, "We can just leave." "It's okay, baby. We tried." But Maya didn't move. Judge Whitman adjusted his robe, clearly irritated. "Miss Thompson," he said, referring to Angela, "you are not represented by counsel, is that correct?" Angela opened her mouth to answer, but Maya stepped forward. "Your Honor," she said, her voice quiet but steady, "I'm representing my mother." Snickers broke out across the room. A man in the back actually laughed aloud. "What is this? A Netflix audition?" someone muttered. The court clerk raised her eyebrows and exchanged a glance with the bailiff. Collins crossed his arms, grinning with theatrical pity. "You must be joking," he said aloud. "Is she even in high school yet?" "Order," the judge snapped, although he couldn't quite hide the smirk twitching at the edge of his mouth. "You do understand, young lady, that this is a legal proceeding. You are not an attorney, and any attempt to interfere—" "I understand, Your Honor," Maya interrupted, her voice slightly louder now. "But Georgia law permits individuals to speak on behalf of immediate family and housing court in cases without criminal implications, provided both parties consent." The courtroom went quiet. Colin's smile faltered just slightly. "And where exactly did you learn that?" the judge asked. "The Fulton County Law Library. Section 44, Georgia Code, Title 7. There was a pause. Whitman glanced at the clerk. The clerk nodded slowly, typing something into her computer. Angela looked at her daughter, stunned. "Maya, what are you doing?" she whispered. "I'm not letting them take our home," Maya replied, eyes still forward. But even as the judge motioned to proceed, Maya felt the weight of every gaze in the room, half curious, half mocking. To them, she was still just a teenager playing dress-up in a world she didn't belong to. And yet, she didn't flinch. Not yet. Not even when Collins leaned over his desk and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This will be over in 5 minutes. Let the child play lawyer. It'll just make the win that much sweeter." The shame burned in Angela's chest. Not for herself, but for her daughter, standing under that weight. Maya adjusted her papers slowly, her fingers brushing against the worn edges of the folder she had studied late into the night after night, while her mother thought she was asleep. Her voice, when she spoke again, was calm. "Your Honor, the lease signed by my mother contains a clause under Section 8 of the Georgia Landlord-Tenant Act. According to that, the landlord must provide 30 days written notice before initiating any eviction process. My mother received only 10. Richard Collins let out a theatrical sigh. "Your Honor, this is a textbook example of someone reciting law they don't understand. She probably Googled it during lunch." But Judge Whitman didn't dismiss it. Instead, he leaned forward, intrigued. "Miss Thompson, Maya, is it? Do you have proof of this notice?" Maya opened a side pocket of her folder and held up a wrinkled envelope. This was dated March 3rd. The notice to vacate was posted on our door the same day. No prior written communication was given. The judge looked at the clerk. She was already typing. Collins stepped forward, irritation tightening his jaw. "This is a waste of the court's time. She has no credentials. No legal standing. If we let every child off the street argue cases." "Mr. Collins, sit down." Judge Whitman cut him off. "We're going to verify this claim." Angela sat frozen, eyes wide. She wanted to interrupt, to stop this before Maya embarrassed herself, or worse, made things worse. But something in the way her daughter stood, rigid but not broken, kept her silent. Maya continued. "Additionally, Redwood Property Group owns 5 properties in our neighborhood. Of those, 3 were vacated and resold within 2 months. Public records show that renovations were made before the leases were even terminated. This suggests premeditated intent to remove long-term tenants in favor of profitable resales. The courtroom was no longer laughing. Collins stepped closer to the bench. Even if any of that were true, this is circumstantial. Irrelevant. It's not irrelevant if it shows a pattern of illegal displacement, Maya replied. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was relentless. My mom cleaned houses for people like you. Every time she came home with aching feet, she told me to study hard so I wouldn't end up tired like her. She didn't know I was studying her case. Angela's throat tightened. The shame she felt earlier was slowly turning into something else, pride mixed with fear. This wasn't just her daughter defending her. This was Maya standing up to a system that expected silence from people like them. Whitman sat back. You've clearly done your homework, Miss Thompson. But be advised, this isn't a game. If your argument collapses, I will have no choice but to rule for immediate eviction. I understand, Maya said. She swallowed hard, looked at her mother, then turned back. But I think if the system gave us 5 minutes to defend ourselves, we should use every second. The silence that followed was heavy. No longer one of mockery, but of curiosity, of unease, and maybe, just maybe, of respect. The judge called for a recess. As the courtroom emptied, murmurs spread like wildfire. People glanced at Maya as if she were a mystery they hadn't been prepared to solve. Angela sat back down slowly, her hands trembling as she reached for her daughter. Where did you learn all of this? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Maya didn't answer right away. She looked down at her folder, lips pressed tight. Then, finally, she said, I've been preparing for months. Since I first saw the pink paper on the door. Angela stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? Maya looked away. Because you would have told me not to. You would have said it wasn't my responsibility. Angela blinked, feeling a strange ache behind her eyes. It's not, she said, but it sounded weak, even to her. When the recess ended, the courtroom filled again with quiet tension. Judge Whitman took his seat, and Collins rose immediately. Your Honor, before this spectacle continues, I have a motion to strike all previous statements made by the minor as inadmissible due to lack of legal representation and qualifications. Whitman lifted a hand. Motion denied. We'll allow her to finish presenting, unless you're afraid of being out-argued by a teenager. Collins' mouth tightened, but he said nothing. Maya stepped forward again. Her hands were steadier now. Your Honor, I have one more item for the record, she said. This pertains to Redwood Property Group's motive for eviction. She pulled out a copy of a neighborhood zoning proposal, stamped and notarized. This document shows that the company is planning to demolish 3 buildings in our block, including ours, to build new luxury units. The proposal was filed 2 months before any notices were served. My mother's apartment is in one of those buildings. Collins stood abruptly. This is confidential property planning, irrelevant to the current lease agreement. It's not irrelevant if it shows they're using the courts to fast-track displacement without due process, Maya shot back. The judge took the document, reading carefully. His brows furrowed. He motioned to the clerk, who came to take it for copies. We'll need to verify this. Collins looked increasingly agitated. This girl doesn't even know who she is representing. Does she even know who her mother is? Maya turned slowly to face him. Yes, she said firmly. She's the woman who took care of me when no one else would. Who worked every day to keep food on our table. Who stayed up late to clean houses for people who'd never learn her name. That's who she is. Collins laughed coldly. Your Honor, if I may, I have documents here that may bring some clarity to the nature of this relationship. He walked to the judge's bench, handed over a thin file. This is a birth certificate, obtained through public records. Angela's body went rigid. She didn't breathe. Maya's chest tightened. She knew what was coming before it was even said. It states that Maya Thompson was born to one Evelyn Diaz. There's no record of adoption by Ms. Angela Thompson. In fact, according to state records, Ms. Diaz vanished in 2010. There's no legal documentation tying Maya to this woman. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Angela looked straight ahead, unable to move. Maya stared at the floor. Judge Whitman glanced between them. Miss Thompson, is this true? Angela didn't answer. The silence stretched. Maya stepped forward again, but slower now. She's still my mother, she said. No piece of paper will change that. Collins seized the moment. Your Honor, clearly this entire argument is invalid. The defendant has no legal claim to the lease, and the person arguing on her behalf isn't even a legal dependent. This is fraud. No, Maya said. She turned to the judge. It's not fraud.
I didn't know until now.
But even if I'm not her biological daughter, she's been my only family for 10 years. I live there. That's my home. Whitman looked at Angela. Miss Thompson, do you have anything to say? Angela's voice finally returned, cracked and quiet. I never planned to lie. I never had the money to make it official. Maya's mother was my best friend. When she disappeared, I took care of her baby. No one came looking. I didn't do it for credit. I did it because someone had to. Her voice cracked again. She's my daughter. I don't care what the paperwork says. The judge was silent for a long time. Then he sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. We'll reconvene tomorrow. I need to review these materials and consult housing and family law guidelines. Until then, no eviction is authorized. The gavel fell. Angela closed her eyes, finally breathing. Maya reached for her hand, and Angela held it tightly. Outside the courtroom, reporters had already begun to gather. A story was forming about a teenage girl who stood up for her mother, only to discover she was never legally hers. But the bond between them? That was real. Unbreakable. Even if the system didn't see it yet. The courthouse hallway was buzzing. Maya kept her head down, walking beside her mother as whispers trailed behind them. That's the girl, someone said. The one who found out she was adopted in court. Another voice. No lawyer, no papers, and still shut down Collins like a pro. Angela held Maya's hand tightly, but said nothing. Her silence wasn't from shame, it was fear. Not of losing the case, but of losing her. That night at home, their apartment felt smaller than usual. The kitchen light flickered above them as they sat at the table, the same table where Maya had once done homework while Angela sorted coupons and wrote rent checks. Now, it held the weight of a truth neither of them had prepared to face. Angela cleared her throat. I should have told you. Maya didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on a corner of the table. I tried, Angela added. So many times. But you were so little and then the years passed and you called me Mom and it just felt right. Maya blinked slowly. Why didn't anyone come looking for me? Angela hesitated. Your birth mother. Evelyn, she wasn't well. She was scared. She left you with me one night and never came back. I thought the system would ask questions, but no one ever did. It was like you vanished from the paperwork too. Maya pressed her hands together. So, you never adopted me? I couldn't afford the legal fees, Angela whispered. I was barely paying rent. And I was terrified they'd take you away if I went to court and didn't do everything exactly right. Maya's voice cracked. So, I'm not even legally your daughter. You're my daughter in every way that matters. Silence settled over them like dust. Then Maya looked up. We still have a hearing tomorrow. Angela shook her head. We don't have to keep fighting, Maya. The truth's out. They'll use it against us. Maybe it's time to let it go. Maya stood up, eyes fierce.
No.
I'm not giving up now. If they want to say I'm not family, fine. I'll prove that love is stronger than paper. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. News had spread, and local reporters lined the hall. Angela sat stiffly, trying not to look at the cameras. Maya stood ready, her folder of notes tighter than ever in her grip. Collins, smelling victory, opened with cold confidence. Your Honor, in light of yesterday's revelations, the defense has no legal standing to occupy the apartment. There's no lease in Maya Thompson's name, and Angela Thompson, by her own admission, is not her legal guardian. The court must authorize immediate eviction. Judge Whitman, his face unreadable, turned to Maya. Do you have anything to say? Maya stepped forward slowly. Yes, Your Honor. Yesterday, I found out that I wasn't adopted. That legally, I might not have a right to stand here. But I also found out that the woman beside me gave up everything to raise a child who wasn't hers. She took me in, fed me, protected me, and fought for me when no one else would. She taught me right from wrong. And when we lost everything, she never complained. She just worked harder. This hearing isn't just about rent. It's about who gets to call a place home, and who gets to decide what makes a family. The judge listened without interruption. Maya continued, "If I'm not her daughter by law, then fine. But what law says I can't fight for the person who raised me? What law says we don't belong in the apartment where I grew up, just because someone wants to build luxury condos?" Collins stood abruptly. "Your Honor, emotional appeals don't change the facts. There is no legal standing. This is over." But before the judge could respond, Maya pulled out one final paper. "This is a notarized affidavit from our neighbor, Ms. Ramona Ellis. She's been in the building for 20 years. She testifies that Redwood staff entered our apartment without notice twice in February, violating tenant protection laws. It's signed and time-stamped." Whitman took the paper, reading silently. Collins' mouth twitched. Maya didn't stop. "There are others willing to testify that Redwood has harassed tenants, shut off utilities, and sent notices without cause, all to push people out before these rezoning plans go through." She took a breath. "I may not be a lawyer. I may not even be her legal daughter. But I am a witness. And I have a right to speak." The courtroom was silent again. This time not with tension, but with awe. Even Collins didn't move. Whitman leaned back, sighing deeply. "This court is not blind to the facts. Nor am I blind to the reality of what's happening in this city." He paused. "We will reconvene one final time tomorrow. I am postponing judgment until full investigation of tenant claims is complete." He banged the gavel. People in the courtroom stood, murmuring. Outside, cameras flashed as Maya and Angela exited into the sunlight. Reporters rushed forward. "Maya, are you afraid they'll still rule against you? Do you regret defending your mother? What will you do if they evict you?" Maya turned to them, calm. "Whatever happens, I stood up for my home, for my family, and I'm not done yet." Behind her, Angela wiped a tear from her cheek. For the first time in weeks, she stood a little taller. The fight wasn't over, but something had already changed. They weren't invisible anymore. They were heard. And sometimes, that's where justice begins. The next morning, the city of Atlanta woke up to headlines. Teen defends mother in court and shakes real estate giant. News vans were parked outside the courthouse before sunrise. Inside, the tension was electric. Maya sat beside Angela again, this time with a quiet confidence neither of them had felt before. She wasn't just defending a home anymore, she was defending the right to belong. Judge Whitman entered the courtroom and took his seat. His face was stern, unreadable. After careful review of the evidence, testimonies, and legal filings presented, this court has reached a decision regarding the eviction case of Angela Thompson. Maya held her breath. Angela squeezed her hand. Redwood Property Group failed to provide lawful notice of eviction, as required by Georgia law. Furthermore, preliminary evidence suggests a possible pattern of predatory displacement practices, which warrants investigation by the State Housing Board. Collins stiffened, but said nothing. Whitman continued. Therefore, this court rules in favor of the defendant. The eviction is dismissed. Ms. Thompson and her daughter may remain in their residence until further notice, and all utility services are to be restored within 24 hours. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Maya blinked in disbelief. Angela covered her mouth, tears already falling. But the judge wasn't done. "I also wish to make a personal statement," he said, his voice quieter. "In 22 years on this bench, I've never witnessed such preparation, clarity, and courage from someone so young. Maya Thompson may not carry a legal title, but she carries the spirit of justice in a way that honors this court." He looked at her directly. "Your city is proud of you." The gavel fell. Applause broke out, soft at first, then louder. Maya stood slowly, her body shaking from the weight that had just lifted. Angela embraced her tightly, and this time, Maya didn't hold back the tears. Outside, cameras waited. Questions flew from every direction. But as Maya stepped in front of the microphones, she paused. "We're not special," she said simply. "We're just people who refuse to be quiet. There are thousands of families like ours, fighting to stay where they belong. I hope this case reminds everyone that you don't need power to speak. You just need the courage to stand." That afternoon, the calls started coming in: local law clinics, education nonprofits, housing activists. Maya was offered mentoring, summer internships, scholarships. For the first time in her life, doors were opening not because someone gave her permission, but because she forced them to see her. Weeks later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Maya sat with Angela on their apartment steps, watching the neighborhood come alive again.
Kids played in the yard.
Ms. Ramona was hanging clothes on the line. The building felt like home again. Angela turned to her. "You changed everything, Maya." Maya smiled. "You changed me first." They sat in silence, no courtrooms, no documents, just the sound of wind and laughter in the distance. A moment that belonged to them, finally, without fear.